Tom Samuelian, thank you for being with us today, even if it is virtually.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Please, we have to invite you because you are one of the small cadre of individuals who has, since the beginning of the availability of this technology, been both a contributor to the field of digital humanities as well as an avid consumer. I mean, you're one of the people I talk to say who's out there that we may be missing. So you're the right person to start with. So this is great. And the place to start, I think, is to ask you, if you would, to do an overview of the state of digital humanities in the Armenian world today?
It's really amazing how far we've come with digital humanities, given how small a group of people are actually working on it on a daily basis. We don't have that many people that are dedicated digital humanities content producers in the Armenian community, although there are a growing number, and virtually anything that one wants to find, one can find on the internet today, and much more easily and accessibly than one could in earlier times when one had to search in archives or libraries or and the whole range of video and audio that's now available has changed the nature, I think, of digital humanities for Armenians and made the Armenian world much richer and much more accessible.
You're implying that the scope of the material that is digitally available is broad.
Yes, I do believe it's quite broad, given the small group of people that are working on it. We've got everything from the text-based literature and language work to news and books that are scanned. Some of them are digitally scanned, and some of them are images, and the wide range of those. Some of them done by Armenians, but much of it done as part of larger efforts to make digital material available, print material in particular available. And then we've got the whole range of audio and video that's now available on YouTube and other sites that gives a very rich picture. I mean, audiobooks, short clips, music, dance, and then we've got the range of architecture and so forth.
Would you say that the material that is digitally available, especially the text-based, is more contemporary material, modern material, or is it more of the historic, the sources of pride, Khorenatsi and Yerishe, not that we read them, but we have to have them?
There's both out there, but we have a very, very large library called the Digital Library of Armenian manuscripts at AUA, and
And
the
they're
Digital
presented here
Library.
today.
And they're going to be presenting. Very good. I'm glad to hear that. And they have a very, very large collection, obviously, probably the largest in the world, of classical Armenian texts. They also have a very large Western Armenian corpus. And then, of course, there's the Eastern Armenian National Corpus. And then there are a number of groups that have been putting poets and writers from both the early and the later and the more modern periods. It's not complete, it's not systematic, and it is not all compatible with each other. And that's a problem.
Let's talk about that. What does not systematic and not compatible mean?
Well, when one starts to put together a corpus or make a library available, ideally it is comprehensive. We don't have a lot of people putting the same thing on in different formats, although that is in the nature of the technology, that the formats keep changing because the technology keeps changing. But also there are gaps, and it would be desirable for us to have a systematic plan to get everything that's available, make everything available in at least one format that's accessible to most people. And that we haven't done yet. And so that systematic approach is missing.
So systematic is really in the selection and the content inclusion, not necessarily in the access mode.
There's also an issue of the format and the indexing, and obviously we've got several orthographies. We've got at least 3 varieties, if not 4 varieties of the language.
Where did you find the 4th one?
Well, Middle Armenian.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And also, we've also got some strange hybrids out there. You've got Western Armenian in new orthography and the post 1940 orthography, for example, which is out there. And how to make all that coherent and easy to search. Google does that by creating fuzzy searches. And we also have what's being done by big content providers and search engines like Google, with Google Translate and so forth, that we can participate in, and we can build an Armenian presence that connects with everything else in the world, which is very, very important.
So let's talk about that a little bit because, as you hinted at the beginning, there are massive digital databases around the world. Here in the US, there's the Digital Public Library of America, which, by the way, is also presented here today. And they too have many, many Armenian texts. Is there, does that happen naturally by itself? Do we, each of us in each of these different projects and programs, need to be more engaged and proactive in making sure Armenian material is part of the global database? How does that relationship take place so that we're not fragmented and isolated?
Very good question. It's not as easy as it sounds to become integrated into the larger efforts that are going on, because a lot of that is driven by users, and there often aren't enough users, even if Armenians themselves use it a great deal. In the grand scheme of things, there are not that many users, and therefore it's hard to justify the effort that it takes to assure that Armenian materials are properly integrated. You could start from biblical texts, where if you look at most of the biblical text sites, you won't find Armenian among those sites. You might find some modern Armenian, but you rarely find classical Armenian, you barely find it. So there's just one small area where it would seem logical that one would have the translation and so forth, but it's not there, and in parallel. The same thing happens with other sources, whether it's Armenian scholarly works and articles from Armenia and from abroad. Also, when we present, when these are digitized, they're often digitized as images, which is good because it preserves the original pagination and makes it easy to cite to the original source, but it's not that easily searchable. And that's another issue. And we don't necessarily have all the search tools that we need for the varieties of Armenian that we have.
Talk a little bit, please, about search tools and how the search process is either helped by, facilitated by what Google and the rest of the world do, or not facilitated by.
There are lots of different kinds of searches out there. And the more general searches that you get through Google and other search engines often don't take into account the peculiarities of a particular language. And so when one searches Armenian with some of these tools, one gets a lot of extraneous material and can't really focus in as easily as one would like. And often because of that, because you're inundated with too much irrelevant information, you're not able to get what you need. We are at the point where we need to have some tools that are tailored to Armenian. And that starts with dictionaries and search engines that draw on that actually take into account Armenian morphology and word formation and grammar, to those that take into account Armenian orthographic differences, and the varieties of Armenian. That's something that only we're going to create. No one's going to create that for us. And it won't happen through the crowdsourcing, generic efforts that are going on, whether it be Google Translate or Google generally, or other kinds of search engines. So there's an area that I think that we should identify and work on if we want to make Armenian materials more accessible. And we also have to always think about how to do it in a way that translates into other languages and connects with other search engines.
Wow. I keep saying that the nature of this beast is that the work, the hard work, the dirty work is done by individuals who are modern day hermits. You know, they're the people who sit in front of that screen for X number of hours and create digitize, make accessible this data. Now, in order to move to this next stage, whatever that may be, first, can you help define or propose what that next stage might be? And how do we get there? Is it a function of money? Is it a function of coordination? Is it a function of spending 3-4 years training people to be the person to be able to do that next stage?
Interesting. It really requires all of what you said, because we need to create, in a sense, a digital commons for the Armenian nation that is accessible to everybody, that has certain common rules. We still don't have, although we're very close to having, there are still differences even in the coding of the Armenian language in Unicode. And those types of small things can be resolved, but they do take coordination. Then there are the issues of deciding what the agenda should be for content. And some of that is, as you say, individuals sitting down, just plowing through and creating that first generation of clean texts that can then be reintegrated and repackaged and presented in more sophisticated ways with better tools and better interfaces. And we've got a lot of that already. We also have a lot of what's going on that's integrated into crowd content kinds of resources like Wikipedia. And creating that in Armenian and Western Armenian and Eastern Armenian would be an important way to assure that, I'd say, engage wider groups in this effort. Some of it, as you said, is done by individuals or by small groups that do the technical and fairly boring work of proofreading and cleaning text and making sure that it's accessible. And some of it is done by folks that will contribute and be much more creative. And we're at the stage where we're ready for a breakthrough, I think. There's a sufficient amount of information out there that with the right resources and with the right technologies, we should be able to move to the next level. And we're waiting for it.
That's a perfect place to end. Thank you very much, Tom Samuelian.